Chinese.
Yeah, it wasn't like English, Portuguese, French. Lights, camera, action.
The lights aren't on.
Okay, so start.
Our high def. Oh, there they are.
Yeah.
Now we're.
Everyone ready?
Yep.
I'd like to call the Monday, May 3rd, 2021 Oakwood City Council meeting to order. Would you please rise and join me with the pledge to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Lori was unable to attend this evening, so our law director, Rob Jacks, will serve as our acting clerk of council. And Rob, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Mayor Duncan.
Here.
Vice Mayor Byington.
Here.
Mr. Stevens.
Here.
Mrs. Hilton.
Here.
Mrs. Turbin.
Here.
And do we have a report of the minutes of our April 5 regular session, work session, and executive session? Councilmember Hilton.
Yes, Your Honor, I've reviewed the minutes from all three of those meetings, and I found them to be correct and complete, and therefore I move that they be adopted as written.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
So ordered. Under status reports, we have three citizens that we would like to appoint to our beautification committee. They are Evan Brooks, Nancy Droz, and Greg Smith. And I would make a motion that we approve those folks to join our beautification committee. For a second.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We only have a couple people left to appointments to fill. We have a couple on property maintenance, a couple still on beautification, and I think we have a couple on budget review. But other than that, we will hope to get all that resolved here by June, and we will be fully staffed with citizen volunteers to help our great city. Visitors. There is no one in the arena here that wishes to address council. Are we doing a Zoom? Is there anyone who's announced that they wished to address council via Zoom? I don't see anybody there. That doesn't mean they're not watching us. Lori handles this, doesn't she? Nobody has. Okay. All right. Well, in that case, we will close the visitor section. If somebody wants to take a look at us, they can find out how. If we can see you and you want to wave at us, we'll talk to you. So we'll go straight to legislation, and Mr. Stevens has an ordinance to start tonight's legislation.
Thank you, Mayor Duncan. An ordinance levying special assessments for the improvement of certain streets between certain termini in the city of Oakwood by lighting the same with electricity. This ordinance is the third step of our 2022 street lighting program. It was introduced with a first reading at the April 5, 2021 council meeting and is the ordinance that allows for the costs of street lighting to be certified to the Montgomery County Auditor for assessment. This is the second reading of this endorsement. Therefore, I move the council adopt it tonight.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any questions or comments for Councilmember Stevens? Hearing none. Rob, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Duncan.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Byington.
Yes.
Mr. Stevens.
Yes.
Mrs. Hilton.
Yes.
Mrs. Turbin.
Yes.
All right. I have an ordinance here that I introduced last week or last month in Vice Mayor Byington's absence. So you want me to just go ahead and do a second reading, or would you like to do that? Okay. Well, we missed your voice last month, so I'll let you
Okay.
go for the second reading.
Well, then you're going to enjoy this evening because I'm speaking a lot.
Yes.
This is an ordinance adopting the 2022 tax budget for the city of Oakwood, Ohio for the fiscal year beginning January 2022. To comply with Section 601 of the city charter, this is our annual housekeeping ordinance to estimate the city's revenues and expenses for calendar year 2022. It was introduced with a first reading at the April 5th, 2021 council meeting, which I wasn't at, unfortunately. The city charter requires a public hearing for this ordinance. Notice of the hearing was published as required, inviting any interested residents to contact the clerk of council to arrange for remote testimony. No one has done so, so I would like the record to reflect that the hearing was duly convened, but no members of the public wished to testify. And I would also make the motion, since this is the second reading of this ordinance, I move that council adopt it this evening.
Do we have a second?
I second.
Thank you. Mr. Jacks, would you please call the roll on this?
Duncan,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Byington,
Yes.
Mr. Stevens,
Yes.
Mrs. Hilton,
Yes.
Mrs. Turbin.
Yes.
And Vice Mayor Byington continues on the floor with yet another ordinance.
Yes, this is an ordinance to amend Section 1 of the 2021 Original Appropriation Ordinance Number 4925 and any existing supplements thereto to provide for the appropriation of an additional amount of $280,000 to be expended from the General Equipment Replacement Fund for the purchase of a refuse packer, and an amount of $280,000 to be transferred from the general fund to the General Equipment Replacement Fund. This is a supplemental appropriation ordinance to purchase a new refuse packer for use by the Public Works Department. Prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, this was planned as a 2022 purchase. However, delivery of large trucks and other equipment has been significantly slowed by the pandemic due to the manufacturing and supply chain disruptions. Prices are also trending up, and the city staff believes the cost will rise even higher if we wait until 2022 to purchase this packer truck. To ensure that delivery delays do not impact the city's refuse operations and to take advantage of current pricing, the city manager has recommended ordering the refuse packer in 2021. It will replace a 2000 model refuse packer that is at the end of its useful life. The supplemental appropriation will transfer $280,000 from the city's general fund to the General Equipment Replacement Fund, and then authorize an additional amount of $280,000 to be expended from the General Equipment Replacement Fund to purchase the refuse packer. Under Section 3.04 of the City Charter, this ordinance will take effect upon its passage, and I move that council waive the second reading and adopt it this evening.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Because we're waiving the second reading, it would require a 4/5 vote for passage. Rob, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Duncan,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Byington,
Yes.
Mr. Stevens,
Yes.
Mrs. Hilton,
Yes.
Mrs. Turbin.
Yes.
Thank you. And Vice Mayor Byington, you still have the floor.
Yes, Your Honor. This is an ordinance to amend Section 1 of the 2021 Original Appropriation Ordinance Number 4925 and any existing supplements thereto to provide for the appropriation of an additional amount of $257,730 to be expended from the Capital Improvement Fund for improvements to the recycling center, and an amount of $257,730 to be transferred from the general fund to the Capital Improvements Fund. This is a supplemental appropriation ordinance that will allow the city to make some significant improvements at the Public Works Center. The Public Works Department has been developing a plan to upgrade the 24/7 Public Access Recycling Center, and that project was scheduled to take place in 2022. The project would relocate the center from its current location in the dog park parking lot to a larger area at the southwest corner of the Public Works yard. It would create a more efficient drop-off operation. Additionally, it would create a safer environment for users of the center by removing it from the heavily used and often congested dog park parking lot. The total project cost is estimated to be $257,730. City staff capitalized on a grant funding opportunity through the Montgomery County Solid Waste District and was informed that the city will be awarded $72,000 towards the project. This is the highest single amount being awarded to any community under the 2021 District Incentive Grant Program, recognizing Oakwood's commitment to recycling. The grant amount amounts to 28% of the $257,730 project cost, but is conditioned upon the project taking place in 2021. Council believes that it is financially prudent to take advantage of this opportunity, which represents a significant savings to the citizens of Oakwood. The supplemental appropriation will authorize the transfer of $257,730 from the city's general fund to the capital improvement fund, and then authorizes that $257,730 to be expended from the capital improvement fund to relocate and update the city's public access recycling center. Upon completion of the project, the city will receive the $72,000 from the Montgomery County Solid Waste District in the form of a cash reimbursement. I make the motion that under Section 3.04 of the city charter, this ordinance take effect upon its passage, and I move that council waive the second reading and adopt this ordinance this evening.
Do we have a second?
Second?
Any questions or comments for Vice Mayor Byington? I would point out that having visited our recycling center at least weekly, and now that the weather's getting much, the traffic is very congested there, and this is going to be a great improvement, and it's also going to save labor cost that the city incurs from recycling the trash or the cardboard after it's been, and debris after it's been there. So it's going to be much more easier for the staff to handle the recycling material, and it's going to give a lot more room for the dog owners, of which I'm one, but I've not used the dog park, but there's a bunch of dogs over there.
Oh, definitely.
So
And I commend city staff on applying for this grant. $72,000 is a very impressive amount for this particular project.
yes, I agree with that. Hearing no other comments, Rob, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Duncan.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Byington.
Yes.
Mr. Stevens.
Yes.
Mrs. Hilton.
Yes.
Mrs. Turbin.
Yes.
And Vice Mayor Byington, you're still on the floor.
Okay, this is an ordinance to create a fund within the fiscal records of the city to be known as the Local Fiscal Recovery Fund and to declare an emergency. This ordinance will establish a new fund in the city's financial records known as the Local Fiscal Recovery Fund. The fund is required by law in order to receive direct and indirect relief payments under the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021, which was signed into law by the President of the United States on March 11, 2021. Normally, the creation of a new fund requires approval from the Ohio Auditor of State. However, the auditor has waived the state's rights to approve these funds because they are required by federal law. As such, council has the authority to create the fund legislatively with no further state approval. I'm introducing this as an emergency measure so that it can take effect as soon as possible, ensuring that the fund is in place before the city receives its first relief payments. I move that council adopt this ordinance tonight as an emergency measure for the reasons stated above in the ordinance.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments for Vice Mayor Byington? I did have one point of clarification that perhaps Cindy, you can answer this. Is this deemed to be a special revenue fund, or is it have another connotation in our audit scheme of funds? It is a special revenue fund. Okay, that's what I thought, but I appreciate that clarification. Any other comments? Hearing none, Rob, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Mayor Duncan.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Byington.
Yes.
Mr. Stevens.
Yes.
Mrs. Hilton.
Yes.
Mrs. Turbin.
Yes.
And the floor remains with Vice Mayor Byington.
Getting tired of my voice yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
Velvet tones.
This is an ordinance amending section 145.04 of the formal bidding procedures of the Oakwood Administrative Code to clarify that certain brokered purchases and contracts are exempt from formal bidding requirements. This is an ordinance to update section 145.04E of the Oakwood Administrative Code, which is the city's purchasing and contracting ordinance. Formal competitive bidding is required for most city purchases over $50,000. However, there are exceptions to those requirements for certain kinds of purchases and contracts. The key is whether, in the absence of formal bidding, there are inherent assurances to ensure fair and reasonable pricing. The city has an obligation to be a good steward of public resources. For many years, the city has obtained insurance and other employee benefits through brokers who are familiar with the local market and who have a contractual fiduciary duty to act in the best interests of the city. These brokered service contracts have always been exempt from competitive bidding as contracts for professional or personal services, and the underlying benefit contracts have been included in that exemption. However, council wishes to add a specific exemption for the underlying benefits contract. This will avoid any specious argument that the brokered contract might be exempt while the underlying contracts are not. This is the first reading of this ordinance, so I make no motion at this time.
All right, thank you, and then we'll let you come up with your last ordinance of the evening.
Okay. This is an ordinance to terminate Special Revenue Fund 209 upon the financial records of the city, authorize the transfer of its remaining balance to the general fund, and amend existing appropriations of the city to include said transfer. The city's financial records include Special Revenue Fund 209, which is also known as the MLK Community Recognition Fund. It was established by council in 2005 to receive, hold, and expend money for an annual breakfast to honor the life and vision of Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. The breakfast was a joint program between the cities of Oakwood and Kettering that lasted for many years. Ultimately, we discontinued the event as an exclusive program for the two communities, instead supporting larger regional celebrations. This left a remaining fund balance of just over $7,500. Half of that has been returned to the city of Kettering, leaving $3,753.02 in the fund. Last fall, council adopted resolution number 1878, recognizing the establishment of the Oakwood Inclusion Coalition, or OIC, and declaring strong support for its mission and purpose. The OIC is a nonprofit, citizen-driven organization with the mission to study, promote, and celebrate an inclusive, equitable, diverse, and welcoming environment and community for everyone who lives, works, visits, or passes through Oakwood. The OIC's mission is very much consistent with the vision of Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr., and council wishes to contribute the remaining balance of Fund 209 as initial seed money for the OIC. Not only is this an important public purpose, but it is also a fitting and proper tribute to Dr. King's legacy and an appropriate use of these dollars. The ordinance that I am introducing will terminate Fund 209 and authorizes the transfers of its remaining balance to the general fund. Once in the general fund, the money will be available for contribution to the OIC. The ordinance also amends our existing appropriation ordinances to include this transfer. Under Section 3.04 of the City Charter, this ordinance would take effect upon its passage, and I move that council waive the second reading and adopt this ordinance this evening.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any other questions or discussion for Vice Mayor Byington? Hearing none, Rob, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Duncan.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Byington.
Yes.
Mr. Stevens.
Yes.
Mrs. Hilton.
Yes.
Mrs. Turbin.
Yes.
Thank you. That concludes our legislation. Vice Mayor Byington, you did an outstanding job.
Thank you very much, sir.
Okay. It is now time to go to our staff report, and we have our Finance Director, Cindy Stafford. We terminated a special revenue fund and created one, so hopefully your workload will not increase. So I turn the floor over to you, Cindy, for a finance presentation. Welcome.
Thank you, and I say good evening. Mayor, council, staff. It's a long time since I've been up here, so maybe a little bit of a return to normalcy. Not sure, but I'm hoping so. Tonight I'm going to talk a little bit. Well, let's see, baby. Uh-oh. Mark, we're not moving. There we go. All right. So tonight, my agenda, I'm going to talk a little bit about 2020's year end, how we finished the year, the audit that is currently going on for 2020's year end, I want to talk a little bit about how 2021 is progressing. I want to spotlight the income tax department this evening, and then finally wrap it up with just a reminder on how payments can be made to the city of Oakwood, how our payment portal works, and going green. We'll start first with how 2020 ended. Well, as we all know, 2020 was very challenging. When the pandemic hit, we took a look at all of our anticipated revenues and all the budgeted expenditures that we had for 2020. And looming back there was this prediction that we were going to lose somewhere between 10 to 20% of our income tax revenues. Our income tax revenues are 63% of our city revenues. So we immediately took a look at everything to see what we needed to do and how we needed to handle and how we needed to move forward. What you're seeing up here is a slide of the general city services. That represents everything except the refuse fund, the enterprise funds, which are the water, sanitary, sewer, and stormwater. So as you can see, we actually exceeded revenues, exceeded budget by a little over $1 million. We did that in several ways. As it turned out, we held steady with income tax revenues. We actually ended the year 4% higher than we had budgeted, so roughly $300,000 more than we anticipated. I believe that's probably just the normal plateau that or the normal rise that we see every year as a result of raises, bonuses, things like that that happen as our natural scale progresses. We also received $518,000 of CARES Act money. We received $885,000 of workers' comp rebates. Those were premiums that had been paid by the city in past years. Those rebates were paid out of various funds, and so when we received those rebates, we had to allocate those to the funds that the original premiums came out of. So what was attributable to the general city services was a little over $726,000. Where we did see drops in revenue was in our investment income, which was about $100,000 less than what we budgeted. We also saw a drop of $150,000 in our community center, and that was basically because everything was shut down. Where we ended up with disbursements and encumbrances, as you can see, we were only about 88% of budget. Part of that was a result of some of the areas where we saw expenditures drop because things were shut down. For example, in the OCC, $264,000 worth of expenses never happened because there were no programming, nothing going on over at the OCC. In addition, we also looked at eliminating or postponing $500,000 worth of capital expenditures into the next year or the year after that. The CARES Act money also offset roughly $300,000 worth of public safety salaries. We used the CARES Act money basically to offset those salaries along with covering the costs of masks, gloves, sanitary supplies, sanitation supplies, plexiglass, floor markings for social distancing throughout the city buildings. It was used to replace the manual faucets and the manual doors so that they were all touchless in all the city buildings. We also set up the Zoom room in this council chambers as well as Zoom room capabilities over at the community center. The disbursements ended up about $1.7 million less than we had budgeted. So all in all, we ended the year in the general services funds in a very strong position heading into 2021. Not really knowing, obviously, what 2021 is going to bring. We were happy to see where those funds ended the year. The refuse fund, as you can see, revenues also exceeded budget by a little less than $100,000. $75,000 of that is also the Bureau of Workers' Comp rebates that were allocated to the refuse fund. The disbursements and encumbrances for the year ended up about 92%, which is pretty close to what we budgeted. The pandemic really didn't have a whole lot of impact on the refuse fund, so it ended up in a strong position as well. And then finally, if we look at our enterprise funds, which are water, sanitary sewer, and stormwater, again, you'll see that the budgeted receipts exceeded what we budgeted by or the actual receipts exceeded the budget by 266,000. Again, a little over 84,000 of that relates to the workers' comp. The other thing that we saw when it came to both water and sanitary sewer was this year brought with a lot of folks who were sheltering at home. So instead of students being at home or being away at college, they were at home taking showers, doing all the things that teenagers do. Same thing with our folks. Instead of being at work, they were at home using more water than usual. So it was interesting to see what happened in those funds and the amount of water and sanitary sewer that resulted in that as a result of the pandemic. One of the things I always say when I talk about budgeting for water is that I need a crystal ball to predict the weather, because if it's a dry summer, then we use more water as well. If it's a wetter summer, then we don't use as much water. So we did have a drier summer last year, but I think the bulk of it has to do with so many people sheltering at home and the impact of the pandemic in the revenue side of the enterprise funds. Budget-wise, we ended pretty close to budget as well, so no significant impact from the pandemic when it came to disbursements and encumbrances. Currently, the 2020 financial statements are undergoing their annual audit. The auditors were out in February and they finished the preliminary. They were back out again just a few weeks ago, finishing up the second part of their testing, and they now have the financial statements that I've prepared and they're reviewing those. To date, I haven't heard anything, no significant issues, and so I don't expect that to change. And once they finish their part, then it goes up to the state of Ohio, the auditor's office, for what they refer to as a desk review. So I would assume it'll be the same kind of time frame as we had in the past. It'll be sometime late May, early June when we'll see the finished product from the state auditor's office. Any questions about 2020 before I move forward? What you see up there is where we currently are as of March. I'd love to say I could be as quick and close out April's financial statements in just a few hours today, but that didn't happen. So we're looking at March. I can honestly say that April there has been no significant change. Nothing significant happened in the month of April that is going to change anything that I say currently. We are about 25% obviously through the current year. And if you look at receipts, you see those are, for the general services, are about 32%. That is basically because of timing. Even though the income tax was extended to May 17th, we still saw quite a few returns this year coming in the month of March. And some estimated return, the estimated taxes were still due April 15th, so we're still seeing those coming in as well. So it's really a timing difference, as well as with the real estate tax payment, which our first payment is due February 15th. We have a standing ordinance with the county auditor that we receive those monies as they come into them. So we receive a payment on a monthly basis for any real estate taxes that come in. So that's why you see kind of the timing difference right now and the 32% of budget for general city service revenues. The disbursements and encumbrances are at 35%, which is a little high, but if you pull out the encumbrances, because we've encumbered some of our expenditures that will happen in the early summer months, some of our street projects and those kind of things, nothing has been spent on those to date, but we've encumbered that money as of today. So basically, if we're looking at just what money has gone out the door, checks written, it's about 22%. So we're about where we should be with budget when it comes to general city services. And it's kind of ditto with refuse as well, except in this case, our receipts are about 23%, so we're right where we should be with those. Our disbursements and encumbrances, again, 34%, but if we look at actual checks written, we're we're looking at closer to 22%. So again, we've encumbered some things that we'll be spending, that we'll be paying for later on this summer. Same thing with the enterprise funds, the water, sanitary sewer, and stormwater. Receipts on those are at 23%, which again is what we would expect them to be. Disbursements at 34%. Without the encumbrances, we're right at 21%. So really, we're kind of tracking along where we would expect things to be for 2021. We're not seeing any lingering impact so far in our income tax. We'll see once the bulk of the tax returns kind of flow in here May 17th, and we get those processed during the summer months, or at least June, July, to see where we kind of end up for those. Before I move forward, any questions on where we are through 2021? So I want to take a minute because we never talk about the income tax department, and those individuals do a fantastic job over there. We've got Linda Merker, who's been our tax administrator. She's been our tax administrator for the last 16 years. She's worked for the city for 18 years. She was in the finance department and payroll prior to taking over as the tax administrator. Tracy Davidson has been with us for 5 years, all in the tax department. Both of those individuals are our full-time employees. Stacy Vreeland Mathis is our part-time tax clerk. She's been with the city for 17 years, and all of those years in the tax department. These three individuals are tasked with income tax collections. It's not the easiest of jobs, as we all know. None of us really like paying taxes. And they handle it very professionally. They do their best to make sure that they explain and help anyone that calls. They try and make sure that people understand what our ordinances say and what's required of them. This next slide kind of shows our gross income tax receipts since 1998. Now, Linda has been here since 2005. So she's been a part of that growth as we've seen that happen. But what's behind these income tax gross receipts are what actually the tax department does, and that's the returns that they process. So if you look at that bottom yellow line, that line represents, and I know I've got something in the way here from the Zoom room. I can move that out. There we go. So the yellow line represents business returns that they process. Over the last 15 years, the average number is about a little under 580 a year. Those business returns are C corporations, S corporations, partnerships. That's what that line represents. The red line represents individual tax returns. The last 15 years, they average a little under $6,000 a year. The green line represents withholding tax returns. Those tax returns represent the taxes withheld by companies, whether in Oakwood, out of Oakwood, who are withholding Oakwood income tax from individuals' payroll. So they file with us as well. We average a little over 7,000 of those returns over the last 15 years, an average of those, which brings the total returns, which are the blue line up here. So on average, the department handles a little over 13,600 returns on an annual basis. When I asked Linda how many of those returns do they review, and she chose to use the word review rather than audit, she looked at me and said, we, meaning Oakwood, like a lot of communities, it's paper-based. So those returns are all filed via paper. So every one of those returns have to be entered into our tax software on an annual basis, which means they check the mathematics on every return that comes into this city building. As well then, as they're putting those in, they're looking for anything that looks different, looks unusual, or something doesn't seem right, or maybe there's not the attachments that need to go with that. And those get kicked out, and then those get a follow-up letter, usually from Linda, probably from Tracy now as well. So they do look at, I don't want to say 100%, but just about when it comes to reviewing the tax returns that come into the city. So again, when I say they do an excellent job, they really do an excellent job. Mark, we're not moving again. Stay too long. There we go. As everyone knows, that the federal government moved the original filing deadline from April 15th to May 17th. With that extension, the state of Ohio did the same thing. They moved the extension, or their filing deadline to May 17th, and with that, also, the cities were required to move that as well. Linda wanted me to make sure that everybody knew that if they were filing a federal extension to extend beyond that May 17th, so in other words, they filed Form 4868, that you also automatically extended your City of Oakwood return to that October 15th filing deadline. And just a reminder that the filing deadline is the October 15th extension is an extension to file your return, not pay your taxes. The payment of taxes is still due May 17th. One of the things that Linda is looking at later this year is we are looking at starting to do an e-file when it comes to individual returns. Now, that e-file isn't going to work like you normally see a federal and the state e-filed. This one will be a little different. There'll be a link on our website, and so instead of having to pull our forms off and drop the numbers in or actually use the PDF fill-in on our website, you'll actually be able to go to this link, which will take you to our return. You'll be able to fill it in if you have just W-2s, and it will automatically then go through the calculation process, and that will actually upload into the city tax software. So it will save some time for Linda's staff when it comes to entering. So we'll find out a little bit more on how this is going to work and what it's going to look like. Now I've lost everything. Oh, there it is. Later this summer, so we'll watch for that. Okay, Mark, we're not moving again. On the website, she provides a lot of information out there about individuals, businesses, employee withholding, taxpayer information, taxpayer assistance, military service members. All of that information is available out there. There's the forms and everything necessary can be found under each of those tabs on the Income Tax Department website. Also contact information, as well as this tax return completion request form. We do have residents who ask that we complete their tax returns. If we do that, we request that this be completed. All the necessary forms that need to go in there can be included with that and then dropped into one of our drop boxes. And one of the last things that I'm going to talk about is to go green. Our favorite topic these days. With utility billing, we have the ability for folks to go online. We've partnered with Invoice Cloud. We did this about 1.5 years ago, because it's 2 years now. And you can sign up and create a utility account. And with that account, you can request that your invoices be sent via electronically through your email. We want to encourage our residents to do that. Just because you go online to the investment or to the invoice portal, you don't have to pay that way. You can just go online, set up your account, click the box that says, go ahead, I want my invoice emailed to me rather than sent to me through the snail mail. We still spend roughly $1,000 a month on postage to mail invoices. If we can move more and more folks over to that, to getting their invoices emailed to them, that saves taxpayer dollars, saves trees, and we would love to see more and more folks move to that method of getting their invoices. When it comes to payment methods available for the city, obviously, check, you can mail to the city. You can drop in one of our 2 drop boxes. The one drop box is in the alley across the street. The other one is in the lobby of our city building. We added that during the pandemic last year. It's right across from the dispatch window. That box actually drops right into a locked box right into the finance department. So that one's available. If you're paying by cash, we really prefer that you come in person and pay at the city building. That way we can give you an individual written receipt for the cash. We go through the process, obviously, of making sure everything ties. So we would love to have you come into the office if you're paying cash. I don't recommend dropping those in the drop boxes. If you use the online payment portal, you have the ability to pay with a credit card or debit card. That's the only way to pay with either one of those 2, and that's through our payment portal. That you can get to anywhere on the city website. Anytime you see anything that says pay online, you can click on that and it'll take you directly to our payment portal. There is a convenience fee charged for that service using a credit and a debit card. For utility payments only, you can actually set up to have the city do an ACH. We'll process that ACH once a month on the due date of your utility payment. There's no fee for that service. What we do need you to complete is the utility bill authorization form. You can find that on the website. If you have any questions, you can call our utility clerk directly. She will be more than happy to direct you to where you can print that form out. She can also email that form, whatever you need. If you go to the city's website, this is in on the main page, the home page of the city's website. Down at the bottom, you'll see that yellow bar that says Get Answers, My Services, Make a Payment, Report an Issue. If you click on the Make a Payment, it goes from yellow to blue, and then what pops up are all the choices that you have on what you want to pay. You can click on those, and then it will take you through that process. You can pay both, obviously, all the payments through that, but in particular, utility payments and income tax payments using debit or credit cards. I did want to make sure that folks understood that if you are looking to set up an income tax account, we don't have that ability on the Invoice Cloud payment portal. That is only for utility payments. If you're looking for your income tax balance, your estimated tax balance, any of that kind of information, that requires a direct call into the tax department to get those balances. Those are just all of the miscellaneous payments that can be made online through the portal. And again, 2 different numbers. The bottom number takes you directly to the finance department. The 298-0400 takes you directly to our utility clerk. You can also email us. We try and answer those, or we do answer those pretty much every day. That's it. Any questions?
Questions for Cindy?
Very thorough.
Yes,
have
yeah,
one.
great job, Cindy. Thank you. I love how so many things are possible electronically and more to come, it sounds like. I was wondering how many questions roughly your income tax department gets. It sounds like customers or citizens ask a lot of questions. I was just curious if you knew, not exact, but.
Not off the top of my head, but I know there are some days that phone's ringing constantly over there. But those ladies are always willing to help. And I know when Linda was out and Tracy was out, they came to me. So, so we are always willing to help anybody that has any questions.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. Great presentation. Quick question. Do you know approximately how many of our, we'll call them individual tax returns, are just W-2s?
when I posed that question to Linda, and we asked the question, I think Norbert posed that question as well to Linda, this new fill-in link, Linda seemed to think that that was probably 50% of our individual tax filers actually have nothing but just W-2s.
And that's 50% of the, not 14,000, or average
No,
of 13.
six, little over six.
I think it's a 6.
Yeah, a little under 6.
So approximately
yeah.
3,000 returns are W-2s. If we can get a whole bunch of those on that system, that would be a lot less burden for our tax department.
That's
Okay,
correct,
excellent.
yes.
3,000. Okay, great. Thank you.
Other questions for Cindy? Well, I want to just thank you on behalf of council and the city for everything you did this time last year. It was looking pretty bleak. And I know that the finance department and all of the departments under Norb's leadership did a very good job in making sure that we weren't hemorrhaging cash, because at that point in time, if you think about where we were last April, we didn't know what was going to happen. So first of all, thank you for that. Second, regarding the income tax department, you know, as a CPA, I have dealings with Linda and her staff probably more than the other members of council, and I can tell you she's very professional, and she understands not only our ordinances but the state law. And I've worked with them as we fought against the people in Columbus that wanted to strip our ability to raise revenue to support our services. And she is well known and highly thought of throughout the state. And clearly in this area, she's sort of the go-to person for if there's any issues relating to not only just municipal income tax, but income tax in general. So I do want to thank her publicly, and her staff has also done a very good job. And I think that I do remember when she was out, one of the calls was from me to you, and I still don't know if we have the right answer, but I like the answer you gave me. So we'll now wait for Linda to review our conclusions. But so anyway, and also just as an aside, you talked a little bit about the audit, and it's been years and years and years since we've had any issues at all with the finances of the city, and that's due to your leadership. And we've clearly you've done a great job there, and I'm truly expecting the Auditor of State to come here in person this year to present you another Auditor of State award for financial reporting. So hopefully we can have that sometime this summer or fall. All right, anything else? All right, thank you, Cindy, we appreciate your efforts. We now have a city manager's report, I believe.
Yes, Your Honor. You might think that for me to sit here and listen to these staff briefings, it's kind of, a bit dull because I live and breathe this every day, but it's not. It's actually makes me feel good because I'm reminded about all the various things that each of our department heads are responsible for and the outstanding work they do, and in large part, they make my job easy. And I often say that, when I look at my responsibilities, I think the two primary things I need to do is provide people like Cindy, department heads like Cindy, the resources they need to do their jobs, and then to remove obstacles. When things get in the way, I'm the guy that needs to try to move things, to let them shine, and that's exactly what they do. And it obviously shows. So thank you, Cindy, for all that you do. Just a few quick things. Last council meeting, I mentioned that we reopened the basketball courts at Schaefer and Orchardly. That was done on Monday, April 5th. And aside from a couple of calls about some late night playing, it's pretty well gone very smoothly. And we continue to keep a close eye on the courts on a regular basis, primarily through our safety department, and responding to any neighborhood issues that might arise. But all good news on that front. If you've been by Orchardly Park, you'll see that the main playground area has been fenced off for the last couple weeks, 2.5 weeks, as we have a contractor in replacing the rubber safety surface. That was originally put in 2008, so it lasted 12, 13 years. and was just at the end of its useful life, so needed to be replaced. And we hope, weather permitting, that the playground will be reopened later this week, and that we'll have a new system there that'll last at least as long as the original one. Here in a few weeks, the Schaefer Park Tennis Facility will be resurfaced, and this is warranty work that was originally planned for 2019, and then it got moved to 2020, and then because of the pandemic to this year. But it's to fix some flaws that occurred with the original project in 2018. The contractor has done a great job of honoring the contract and the warranty, and so this resurfacing will be done entirely without any additional public expense. Unfortunately, the courts will be closed for a period of probably 6 to 8 weeks while this takes place, but we're pushing the contractor to make sure that they're reopened in time for the high school tennis team to begin their practices in late July or maybe early August. Thank you for passing the appropriation ordinance for the refuse packer. I'll tell you that the one we're going to order tomorrow, based on your appropriation tonight, already costs 12% more than the one that we ordered last fall. So these two packer trucks, aside from our fire engines here, are probably the most mission essential items that we have. They're on the street 4 days a week, 52 weeks a year. And the two that we're replacing, one last year and the one this year, they're 2000 model year trucks, and very much worn out. And in fact, over the last month or so, we've used one of those two has been deadlined. I mean, completely out of service and unrepairable, and we've had to use an old additional packer that we had and have extra crew out there to our trash collection. So the two new trucks are very important. The other comment is the one that we ordered last year, we should have had 4 to 6 weeks ago, but due to just delays that are industry-wide delays in larger trucks, it put us in a pickle here, particularly with the one that just recently broke. So once we get this second truck ordered, and we're expecting the delivery on this to be actually quicker than the first one we ordered, why then we'll have two, a 2020 and a 2021 model year, and our community will be good for another 15 to 20 years when it comes to these big trucks. Also, thank you for the recycling center improvements. It'll be a neat design right at the entrance to the public works yard. If you're at the entrance gate there looking inward, it'll be to the right side there. We need to extend the retaining wall to build some flat area there, but it'll be available 24/7 with a circular kind of traffic flow to it, which I think will be an enormous improvement for our citizens. Two more quick things. The Oakwood Inclusion Coalition had its second general membership meeting on April 28th. I know 3 of our council members were able to attend, as did Chief Hill and Carol Collins. I was unable to attend that meeting, but it was another good gathering, and that organization, citizen-driven organization, will be conducting quarterly meetings as a group, and we had about 100 at the first meeting in January and about 80 or so at this second meeting. Unfortunately, it had to be conducted again via Zoom, and we're hoping that by July or maybe the October meeting we can actually gather in person. But it's a great organization and a good mission and purpose. And finally, the in-car and body cameras for our public safety department, which were ordered in early January, have arrived. The equipment is here. We've begun the installations, and the training on the use of those two devices will be conducted in early June, and I think that's a week or two total process. And so by late June, both of those camera systems will be operational, and I think will be a great addition to our public safety department for the protection of our officers as well as all those with whom we interact. That's all I have.
Questions for the city manager? Are there dash cam cameras as well, or just body cameras?
There are both.
Both,
Your Honor.
that's what I thought.
Yep.
All right. Any other questions for city manager? All right. Thank you for your report. Again, we appreciate all of your efforts on behalf of our city. Have a safe trip as you go out west to see your father, and we look forward to you coming back. It's now time for council comments. Councilmember Turbin.
Oh, thank you. At the last meeting, I mentioned the possibility of the Oakwood Historical Society possibly offering a home tour in June, and I am pleased to tell you that they are moving forward on this. It's going to be June 19th, and the title of the tour is The Hidden Manor of Oakwood. So it is one of our grand old homes, and it's going to be very exclusive in small groups where they are abiding by all the CDC guidelines. So I'm looking forward to that.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Hilton.
No comments, Your Honor.
Thank you. Councilmember Stevens.
Thank you, Mayor Duncan. Just a couple quick things. I don't know if Steve was going to talk. You can talk about that day in May. We usually talk about everything together. Just a reminder that on Saturday, May 15th, will be Oakwood Rotary's That Day in May celebration. And it's going to be a little different this year. I don't want to get into all the details, but there will be a run in the morning. Rotarians are selling a breakfast basket. There's a dog parade. Then I know I'm missing something. I know about Monday, but I was getting there. Something else the afternoon, I thought. Well, and there's also a golf outing at Dayton Country Club on May 17th.
We have a dog show of which I will be one of the judges.
Yes, you will be a judge.
Yes.
I was aware of that. So, a lot of different things going on. A lot of ways to get involved for our citizens. So we hope that everyone pays attention. Usually, all these details are in the register. If not, talk to any Rotarian. They give you all the details you need. It should be a fun couple days. The golf outing hopefully will be such a good success. We can continue this on and just have another fundraiser for the Oakwood Rotary Club that gives thousands of dollars every year to many local charities and foundations. So it's a very good cause. The other thing is I want to direct this to our young citizens and their families. I want to congratulate you as you're winding down your school year on a challenging yet successful school year, getting through some obstacles of online classes and chopped up classes. And, I think the schools did a great job for what they were dealing with to get kids in class and to be online as well. But to the parents who helped their children out because they were teaching from home, kudos to you. And then finally, big congratulations to the seniors, to the class of 2021. On Friday, they believe, yes, May 21st, they're going to do the parade again for all the seniors. So hopefully we can get all the citizens to come out of your house on Friday, May 21st, and recognize those seniors. They're going to do a big parade and recognize them as well-deserved graduates of Oakwood High School. So good luck to all your seniors and your next adventures, wherever it may take you.
Are they also putting photographs of the seniors on Schaefer Boulevard?
Yeah, I believe same place they did last year on Schaefer near the baseball and softball field, and just running up and down the street there. The posters, mid-size, kind of like yard signs. They'll be up for a few weeks as well. So another way to recognize a great senior class.
That was a neat idea last year. I think it's going to be a tradition.
Yeah, well, that's why they're doing the parade. So I think they like the posters as well. So. We'd like to continue good things.
Great. Vice Mayor Byington.
As Rob mentioned, that day in May, I encourage you to check out the Oakwood Register. It has all the specific details. Try to participate where you can. I think it's a lot of fun events. We're not quite back to normal, but we're getting closer, and it's going to be good for our community to at least start the process. And then tying into what you mentioned about the schools and the graduating class, it's my understanding that this week is Teacher Appreciation Week, and one of the things that we couldn't have had the year that we did for our students if it wasn't for the teachers and their unbelievable resiliency and adaptability and versatility. So if you have the opportunity, reach out to a teacher and show some appreciation. I've been very interested reading most of the stuff on Facebook. I don't bother to read, but the schools have a lot of individual profiles on some of the teachers, and it's been very interesting to read to see what kind of things that they've been doing all year long. So congratulations to all of them.
Thank you. I have no comments this evening because the comment I was going to have was Cindy saying, make sure you pay your taxes on the 17th, even though you file for an extension, but you beat me to the punch. So our next regular session is going to be on Monday, June 7, 2021. We are adjourned.